Salute to you all. The brave never fall. This is the Brave Never Fall Connections podcast, where we talk about relationships. This one, we're talking about a couple of different things, or I should say a few different things. Usually these things pop in my mind because someone asks me a question, and it's hard to give very brief answers when people have relationship questions, because even the greatest experts in relationships are always learning. So is it a question of it's my opinion? Of course. Is it a question of my experience? Of course. But that will go with anybody who has any relationship advice. We're kind of held captive to what's come before us. How many bad relationships have we been in? How many good relationships have we been in? How many marriages have we been in? How many failed marriages have we been in? And what do we want from life? Do we even want to be in relationships? Do we view our relationships more as enhanced friendships or something more beautiful, like, a twin flame relationship or a soulmate relationship or life partner? These are all different things that are only relevant to the people who are trying to put a label upon them. Some of those labels can be said openly, and people can look at it and say, of course. You have other people, you say, I don't see how that label applies to you two individuals in this relationship that you currently are engaged in. So I always go back to this. When people say, what should I look for in a relationship? How do I know if it's a good relationship? I always go back to, you have to start with yourself first. I've said it 1,000 times. The common denominator of any relationship that you enter or exit will always be you, regardless if it's your fault or not. You had a part to play in it. And some people say, well, that's not fair. Well, let me ask you another question that's kind of not related to relationships. And that would be, is it fair that you're born at all? Is it fair that your mother and father conceived you and you are currently living in this world? One would say, it's my birthright to be born. Of course. Hell yeah. They better have made me. I love who I am. You have other people that say, well, it is what it is. And you have other people that say it's completely unfair. I never wanted to be here and I don't want to be here now. It's all relative to how you feel about that particular situation. How do you feel about being born? Does it mean your life is insignificant because you feel like maybe you didn't want to go through this, that you were unfairly brought into this world to deal with the journey of life? Or would you have been cheated if somehow you got word without even being born that, hey, you were supposed to be born and live this life? Well, why didn't it happen? And what about the people who are only here for a short amount of time? They love life and it's taken away from them. And you have people who hate life and they live forever, it seems like. So it's all relative. So let's take that same concept and let's apply it to relationships. Is it fair or unfair that you even have the ability to love? Ask yourself that question. Is it fair or unfair to even have the ability to fall so deeply in love with someone that you can't imagine your life without this person? Some might say that's an equivalent to birth, to having a soul. Is it fair or unfair to have consciousness, to have a soul? You start thinking of it in those terms, and all of a sudden, love starts to have a completely different meaning. Why is that? Because just like you being conceived and being born, you can't go back to that moment and just hold that moment in your hands and say, this is the exact moment where if I could have done something about it, I would have. Technically, I guess if you had a time machine, you can go back and do something horrible to your parents. But I mean, let's talk realistic here. We don't know when the moment of consciousness actually enters your body. This is why abortion laws are so important, why there's such a big debate about it. When do you actually become a human being? When is it? When is the point of what we all consider to be consciousness and a soul, an internal soul, something you cannot pick up? By the way, you can't pick up your consciousness either. You also cannot pick up love. You cannot pick up anger. You can't hold emotions in your hands. All you can do in this world is hold physical objects, things that can be measured and tested and proven that they have a start date, that they're defective, that this is happening, this is happening. If I do this, this will happen. Much harder to do when it comes to things like consciousness and souls and emotions, attachments. Those things, the only person or the only scientist who can measure those things is the person that is wielding those things in the first place. If you're an angry individual, no one really knows how angry you are truly inside except you. And perhaps you don't even know how angry you are. You hadn't even seen the full peak of that evolution of your anger or your love. Which is why I say in relationships, when people ask me that, how do I know when my relationship is great and when it's not? And who are you to give advice on it to begin with? Because this is all advice. This is something to plant a seed in your mind. Now, the brave never fall in all its aspects is always about planting seeds and giving you the opportunity to think about things that maybe you haven't thought about enough or deeply enough. And then try to wake you up from who you actually are. Because there's always another level of being awake. There's always another level. So I tell people, you have to understand that in relationships, there are certain things that you can do to make sure that when you play your part, and again, you're not in any relationship where you do not play a part. When you play your part the same way you would want them to play your part for you. Play your part the way you would want them to play your part for you. Why? Because they're exactly the same as you. They're expecting the exact same thing from you. They're hoping you love them as much as they love you. They want you to love them and care for them unconditionally, as much as they care for you. Now, we're talking generalities here. There are some people who do not give a shit what you think about them. They only want what they want. We know what that is. That's called narcissism. But if you're on the empathy side of it, if you're an empath, typically you're going to want from them what you want from yourself. Do you walk out every day? If you walk out every day and treat yourself like shit and you want to be treated that way, of course you're going to attract that same type of behavior. You attract what is like you. Like attracts like. So when you attract bad behavior, and you believe you are bad behavior, that's exactly what you're going to end up with. Because there is a lack of principle and values there that you're not truly saying, this is a part of my life. So you have holes in there. You have blanks. There are places in there that are being filled by the wrong things. You could have a little bit of values here and some principles and morals you stand on over here, but you have these divides in there, these gaping holes. And we don't like holes as people. We want everything in our lives to be filled. No pun intended. But we do. As human beings, we want to make sure everything is fulfilled. We want everything to feel like there's no lost opportunity. FOMO. Fear of missing out. YOLO. You only live once. We have that mentality. So, with being so eager to fill those holes and those divides and those empty spaces that we claim that is unfairly missing something, that, it's like I've gone long enough without this part of my life not being fulfilled. We get so eager to fill those spaces that we tend to say, you know what? I'm going to ignore this red flag and I'm going to fill it with something that probably has no business even been in my radar as far as something in my life. I always say, If there's something in your life that is not aiding your purpose or aiding whatever life you're trying to create, it has no business being in your life, and you should not pay any time or attention to it. Ever. When people ask me, is there a value or a principle or a moral that I should stand on? That's one of the first ones I tell them. Never pay any time and attention to any person, place, or thing that does not help you and align with your purpose and whatever it is you're trying to create for yourself in life. You are literally wasting your time when you do that. But we get impatient. I have done it. Everyone has done it. I know this because I used to be the most impatient asshole you have ever met in your entire life. And I say asshole because a lot of times when you get impatient, that's what you become. You end up to certain people, maybe not to yourself because you don't see it. You're blinded by your own ambition, about your own desires and your own lust and your neurotic behavior, that you forget that you end up literally just coming off looking like a pathetic, needy asshole. And I say asshole because you end up being rude to people. The people who you feel like don't serve you and aren't coming close to filling those voids in your life, they suddenly become not interesting to you. So you ignore them. You don't listen to them. You talk over them. You treat them like crap. You feel like you need to help them more than they could ever help you, and that annoys you. We've all done this. I've done it too. It's part of growth. That's the reason why we have to go through things like this. I don't like when people say, I've never been an asshole in my life. Yes, you have. Again, you just was blinded by it. You didn't realize you was as much of an asshole as you thought you were because someone just didn't call you out on it. And that's another problem. In relationships, you need to have someone in your life that will call you out on your bullshit. That's actually a very healthy form of a relationship. Is when someone has your back so fully and they love you so deeply that they're also willing to be completely unafraid to call you out on your bullshit when you are going in the wrong direction, and it's affecting not only you, but it's affecting those around you. The goal of every relationship is freedom. Giving and freedom. You go into relationships to give fully and unconditionally. And you go into relationships to allow the other person to feel free. And when you can do those things, you will feel more connected to them and to yourself. Again, then we can get back to those emotions. And we can get back to, what does it feel like when it's done to you? Suddenly those emotions feel like you can pick them up. They're so heavy. They're so dense, and there's tension that you feel like you could pick up your anger. That's how angry you are. When you're so deeply in love, you feel like you could go in and pick up love. That's how deeply you love. That's how heavy it is. And that's what you want. That means you are exploring your emotions enough where you can understand this is important and I should never do this to someone else. That's why it's so damn important for people not to ignore their emotions and understand them. That is your road to empathy. That is your road to freedom from narcissism, from being needy, neurotic, and selfish. If one was so inclined to do those things. There are some people, again, who enjoy those things, who they are defined by these things. They have found success in relationships through those things, which some people will call negative. But again, this is all general talk. To each his own. If someone has found a life of pleasure and success, and they feel free with their methods, and we will look at them and say that you're a bit neurotic, and it's working for them, we have to walk away from that. That's their right to do that. If we say that same thing about this person, you're really narcissistic. Excuse me, but that's their right. I have always said with The Brave Never Fall, my job is not to convince you that you're right or wrong. My job is to convince you that there are spectrums here. there are divides, there are rhythms, there are things in this world that if you choose to look at them actually helps you. Being single-minded about certain things does not help. The more we know in life, the better we understand our positions in life. If you're someone who is feeling like you are free in a relationship and you give that freedom to someone else, maybe you are, but you keep failing in relationships. That's when we have to start asking ourselves questions, right? I know I did. You listen to experts, quote unquote experts, you listen to all these people who claim to have perfect relationships and relationships are great. And you say, well, if I just do what they do, I'll have that too. The problem is that those people are only speaking for themselves and the person that they're with. And that person who is speaking is not you, and the person that they're with is not the person you're going to be with. So it's a reference, it's a guide, it's an appendix. It is not a Bible. It is not a tattoo. It is not permanent. Things change all the time. That same couple could have something happen to them, and the very next week, every single word that they said about that perfect relationship now has a completely opposite context to it, because one person chose to say one thing or do one thing or not do one thing or not say one thing, and the whole complexity of the relationship is now skewed, if not destroyed. Which is why when you love somebody, you also have to expect the unexpected, because that person is growing. With or without you, that person is growing. And because we are not gods, we can't dictate and say to other people, I think you should grow this way. And I think you should grow this way right now, forever. It doesn't work that way. We don't get to tell people when and how long they grow. We have to go along with it. And if we're doing life right, guess what we're doing that is simultaneously, the exact same as them. We're growing as well. Again, we want to be with people who are most aligned with who we are already. If we're a person of growth and we know this going into the relationship, being in a relationship with somebody who's going to grow as well is important. And if they are the type of person who does not grow, it's important that this person tells you this up front. Hey, listen, I'm going to support every little bit of growth that you have. I grow very slow. There's not a lot of things that affect me. I like who I am. I love who I am. I have a lot of self-respect. I have self-control for myself. But I will never judge you or leave you or not love you unconditionally because you're growing. So that leads us to another area of relationships that I found out the hard way. If you know something to be a truth about yourself, at the beginning of a relationship, when it comes to your core values, your principles, and your morals, we can't just say what we want to say to make sure this person stays in our life at that moment in time. We have to actually branch out and try to be as open book as possible about who we are, especially when it comes to our values and our morals and our principles. And if those things align, we have plenty of time to figure out the rest. That's what's so great about relationships. If you have a great relationship, you're constantly going to be finding out new things about people that you didn't know before. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as the person hasn't been deceitful, they haven't added in a wrinkle that you hadn't seen that was just like so blindsided that it changes like who you think you were because of how you see this person. It happens a lot. I've seen a lot of people go through this where they enter a relationship with someone and then someone comes out and says, oh, I have a kid and this kid is 20 years old now. And these two people might have been married for 20 years. It's like, wait a minute. So you had this baby. Wait a minute. Where? Well, I gave her up from adoption or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it would have been nice to know that up front. Those are things that are very important. So those sorts of things you need to perhaps tell people up front. I remember for a long time, I used to want to tell people that my father had died because at the time, I just didn't want to talk about it. And I thought that a lot of girls, and this is back when I was in high school, I thought a lot of people thought that may have made me weak. And then I went the complete opposite direction because that didn't work. Then I started talking about it too much. And that did make me weak. So I remember getting older and being like, maybe I should just talk about it when it needs to be talked about in the natural flow of the conversation. But I always thought that my father and I've been around needed to be talked about early on in the dating process because it's a huge part of my life. And it would be jarring to say that to someone 2 or 3 months into dating someone or 10 years after you're married. Hey, my father's dead. It's a bit strange and can be jarring for people. But that doesn't mean that the person is bad when this happens, because I believe in relationships that freedom also allows you to be able to just go naturally. And when things are brought up, they're brought up. As long as there's no malicious intent behind it, you're not trying to hurt somebody with that information. Maybe there's repressed memories. There's all kinds of things that goes into that. But it goes back to being giving in relationships and being free in relationships so you feel connected. The freer you make a person feel in a relationship, especially emotionally, you're much more likely to get those deep, dark secrets and those deep things about someone's life, about what they really want out of a relationship much earlier on instead of later, where they're covering it up because they see enough of you to warrant being with you, but they just don't want to tell you everything about their lives just yet because they don't really trust you. And we know in a lot of relationships, trust takes a long time. It's not like the movies where trust is gained in 20 minutes. And next thing you know, these people are telling each other their deepest, darkest secrets, and they barely even know each other. That is not reality. Trust takes a long time to build, no matter how well you know a person. It takes a long time. And the way you get someone to trust you is that you have to allow them to feel so utterly comfortable around you that they can trust that you are not going to judge them, abandon them, humiliate them, ridicule them, talk down to them, because something that is very important to them happened in their life, whether they can control it or not. And that's beauty. That's trust. That's what relationships all about. That's when you feel the most connected you ever will be with someone, is when they ultimately trust who you are. And people may say, what happens when you make mistakes? That's why they have words like forgiveness and redemption. We all make mistakes. We're all going to do something in life where someone important to us is going to have to forgive us in order for us to be in a relationship with them in any capacity. And that's regardless if it's a family member or a friend or wife or husband. We're all going to get a situation where we're going to have somebody say, I forgive you, and I actually love you more for it because you came out with it and you told me, and I can see that you're actively trying to change it because it's a very big part of your life. And not only is it a big part of your life, it's a big part of your values and your morals and your principles. And for a lot of people, that is very important to them. It's important that they enter a relationship knowing that they want to give, but they're going to give it to somebody who is, again, their equal. You want to be forgiven when you do something wrong. You want to be forgiven when you're trying to do things differently in your life. You want support when you're trying to change something that may not be so great to you, but this other person may love it. And you're saying, I appreciate that you like or liked or love or loved me in this particular version of my life, but I feel more aligned with this. And believe me, again, relationships are about giving. If someone leaves you because of that, they gave you the greatest gift they could ever give you. If someone refuses to love you unconditionally because you're trying to do something better for yourself, that is, again, not malicious, not hurting anyone, and is going to take time to figure out, and they say to you, you know what? I didn't sign up for this. I'm out of here. Well, you can say, you know what? Thank you. I appreciate the gift you just given me. This is going to suck. I'm going to miss you very much, but I'm glad that you were man or woman enough to tell me this. So I will take your gift of your absence and you can go. And the door swings both ways. You have every right to do the same thing. Coach Wayne, one of my relationship coaches that I follow, always says, if it's not equal, when you go into a relationship to give and to allow the other person to feel free, and they're not as giving as you, and they're not allowing you to feel as free as you would like, you have to give them a gift. And that gift is the gift of missing you. The gift is the gift of them missing you. That doesn't mean you be vindictive and you run away and say, guess what, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Because that statement is not a tool. It's not a weapon that you use. It basically means I entered this relationship trusting that you would eventually get to a spot where you love me as unconditionally as I love you. And if it's not reciprocal and is not there, then I cannot continue to go against everything that I feel I stand for. And I feel everything I stand for is good for me. Again, we do things for ourselves. We cannot do things with the outlook of, I'm only doing this because I think this person may like this. If it's not genuine and it doesn't come from you genuine, how are you free at that point? Remember, relationships are about being free. Not just for the other person to feel free, but you to feel free as well. There's nothing greater than being in a relationship with someone where you bond with, where both of you feel totally free to be yourselves. You guys can fart and burp in front of each other and it's completely okay. You guys can make jokes. You guys can go down memory lane. You're cleaning together. Everything's light and fun. You're not judging the other person. You're not ordering the other person around. You don't expect anything of them other than for them to be themselves. That is true love. That is giving. That is allowing the other person to feel completely free so you can feel completely connected. That is true respect coming from the other person towards you. And if you want that from somebody, you have to give that to the other person. You have to give what you expect from others. If you want to feel loved and feel respected and feel heard, you have to do that for other people. You have to do that for other people. Because that's the good feeling about relationships, that freedom and that giving. Giving without expecting anything in return other than the respect and admiration and the investment from the other person. It doesn't mean I got you a gold watch, now you go give me a diamond pearl ring or earrings or necklace. It doesn't work like that. It means I'm giving my life to you. I think we look at the material parts of it too much. Time is the greatest gift you can give anyone. The gift of your time. If you are going to say to someone, I'm making time out of my day to talk to you because I want to. I'm making time out of my day to spend time with you because I want to. That's the greatest gift of all. And I talk to a lot of people who forget that. He hasn't given me a gift at all. I'm like, what type of gift are you talking about? Trying to get this, and this. But at the same time, they're forgetting that the gift is, because I asked them, do you love them? They're great to me. They're awesome. They just don't do this and this. Trust me, it's coming. And then you ask what this person may be doing for them, and it's one-sided. They're not doing on the other end what they expect the other person to do for them. And that's called entitlement. You feel like you're entitled to get this stuff. But what are you giving to this person? I was always ask these people, what does your significant other want? Well, what do you mean? What do they want? You want this from this person. What do they want that you're not giving them? Because it has to be something. There's always something. We always usually find out a few things. the gift of time. Is this person really supporting you and showing up for you? And we're not talking about time as in the person is attached to the hip with you 24 hours a day and you're chained together at the ankles. That's not what time means. Time means this person is in your orbit at all points. This person is your significant other. This person is your equal, your bond. You're tethered to this person, but that doesn't mean physically. It means emotionally and spiritually. You're connected to somebody deeply. Deeply. If this person was on the other side of the world, you still feel like you could feel them. That's what I mean by time. Someone's thoughts are on you more than they are on most things in their life. That's the gift of time. But it's also the gift of freedom, because even though this person is doing this, could you imagine if someone calls you every 5 minutes and said, I'm thinking of you? And you say, okay, I'm thinking of you too. And then 5 minutes later, I'm thinking of you. And then 5 minutes later, I'm still thinking of you. You know how old that would get? Male or female, that would get so fucking old real quick. And it would take all the steam out of that. But there's a lot of people out there who would tell you, hey, I don't get enough of that from them. I don't want them to tell me that all the time. You lose something, though, when somebody tells you that all the time. You lose a big part of it, because you start to ask yourself, they're saying it, but I wonder if they feel as much as what they're saying. Because ultimately, it doesn't come down to what people say. It comes down to what people do in relationships. Right? How do they really feel versus what they're saying? And what I mean by do, I'm not talking about, again, the physical. We're talking about what they do with their actions. When you do see them, how do they feel? Do they look at you a certain way? Doesn't matter if you saw them yesterday or you saw them 5 months from now. What does that connection really feel like? And when you weren't around them, did you feel like you were free, or did you feel like you were handcuffed to them even though you were not around them? Because there's a weight. You know that maybe there's something you're doing wrong that this person's thinking about. They're saying they're missing you, but there's something that they want and you don't really know what to give them. Or something that you're refusing to give them because maybe you don't like them as much as you believe you do. This goes back again to all the questions we have from relationships. This is an exploration in this podcast of all the complexities of what it brings up. I feel like the remedy for all these complexities is to not make it complex at all. I feel the remedy for all those complexities is making things extremely simple. And how you do that is making sure that you know you're doing your part the best you can. And you leave it at that and let the relationship unfold naturally. Because the moment you start forcing things, the moment you start asking for things that you are not completely, entirely sure that the other person really wants to do for you, even if they do it, it's not helping. It's hurting. You want people to be excited to see you. No matter how much time that passes, you want people to be excited to hear your voice. You want people to be excited about who you are and what you do. You want people to trust you for who you are. You want people to applaud you for the changes you make. But most of all, you want people to appreciate what you do for them. You want people to love you unconditionally as you do for them, if this is the type of person that you are. We're all different types of people. But I'm pretty sure every person wants to be treated by the person that they care about with love and admiration and respect, and not feel as if everything that they say or do has to be done a certain way or they're gone. That's not what love is about. Love is about giving. It's about feeling free so we can feel connected. You have to love the other person in a way where they feel free. You have to be patient enough to let the relationship unfold naturally. We can't interrogate people. Can't force people to want to be around you attached to the hips 24/7. We cannot expect that from people. We can't control or manipulate people. We can't make people feel like every time they do something, it's okay, but it could have been just so much better. It makes people feel like shit, especially if someone's put some effort into something, because no one's perfect. We're all learning here. And we can tell the difference between someone who is completely fucking up in a relationship and they're doing really horrible things, malicious things, they're not learning anything, they're being selfish. We can tell the difference between that and somebody who is truly caring, may have made some mistakes, needs some forgiveness, needs to learn some more, needs some soul searching more. But maybe they deserve a little bit more of a chance than somebody who's out there who is mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually abusing you every day. There's a huge difference in those things. We all have the ability and the capability of going out and finding the person that we want that's aligned with us. It just gets sad because we know how fucking difficult that can possibly be. So people start to settle. Settling is not freedom. Unless you're 100% convinced, you're settling. The truth hurts when it comes to that. Unless you're 100% convinced that you want to spend your precious time and energy and thoughts and emotions on an individual, and you're on the fence about it, some days you're like, I don't know. Some days you're like, that's a problem. And unless you're going to become a completely, truly honest person with yourself about that particular part of it, then neither one of you are free in that relationship. One of the individuals is being lied to because they believe you love them unconditionally when you don't. And the other person is essentially living their own internal lie because they're trying to create something that is not happening naturally. They're trying to force a connection in a relationship that over a period of time, as it unfolds naturally, it's not holding together. And that's because either one or the other or both simultaneously are not being truly fulfilled in a lot of the major areas that they want to be aligned with. That is the makings of what we call a codependent relationship. Because unless you can sever those ties and somebody can actually walk away and mean it, you're in a vicious spin cycle of codependent behavior. And that's not what freedom in relationships are about. Freedom in relationships is about both of you maintaining the core individual, beautiful nature, the uniqueness that makes you you. You're both holding on to that, but you're combining those two powerful, unique things together and seeing what you create and how that unfolds naturally. That is fucking beautiful. When you accept someone unconditionally, flaws and all, because you know that your core values are lining up and you're being patient and understanding with the other person and allowing them to feel free. Wow. And that other person is doing the same for you and you're combining and you guys are learning together. You get to explore places together. You don't agree with everything. But the one thing you guys both know is that, hey, we are growing something natural and beautiful here. I don't need you. You don't need me. We want each other. We love this feeling of feeling free and being able to say, I don't have to tell this person every 15 minutes that I'm thinking of them for them to know it. They can feel the connection. We're building something here. We have something great to build upon. We can go to bed peacefully because we know we're allowing this other person to feel free. And I feel more connected than ever to this person. I know that this person has told me things that is important to them. And they're going to continue to tell me things that are important to them. And that makes that person special to me. And I want to do the same for them. This person is doing everything that I would like to be done for me, and I'm doing the same thing for them. We're communicating all this stuff. We're not having unrealistic expectations of what this person can and can't do. We're accepting the situations that these people are in, the people that they're in their life, the choices that they make. Why? Because that other person that you're falling for, that you're in love with, and that you're married to, that person is going through changes, and it affects you. They're going through situations and it affects you. But it's not like you're standing there twirling your thumbs. You're doing the same for this person. Which is why it's so damn important that we remember, either you accept a person for who they are or get the fuck away from them. Because that is not what relationships are about. It is not for you to go in a relationship and say, I deserve this because this happened to me. And I want this because that happened to me. And I want this and this and this. You could say that, and all you're going to do is run that person away. And you'll never see him again. You'll always be sitting and scratching your head at, that person was pretty damn close and I blew it because I wanted everything instead of just having the best parts of it. You're never going to find a perfect person that aligns with every single thing in your life 100% perfect. It's impossible. There's no two people on the planet that has ever done that, and there never will be. Let's get those core values lined up. Let's get those core principles lined up, those core morals lined up. Let's get the lifestyle lined up. Let's get the communication lined up. Let's get the trust lined up. Let's get the laughter lined up. Let's get that unconventional love lined up. You line up enough of those, you mean to tell me that that's not more than enough for a beautiful relationship to unfold naturally? I beg to differ if you think otherwise. That is a foundation. That is a place to go. Does that guarantee that your relationship will never end? No. But if a damn sure ups the odds of it succeeding, rather than one person looking at a selfish relationship and saying, I'll accept the selfish relationship, I'll make it all about me. There's nothing worse in the world to feel like you're always a backup plan to somebody else because they don't appreciate you 100% fully for who you are. You always feel like this person's just waiting. She's using me or he is using me to pass time until they find their perfect someone. That's what that feels like. No one wants to feel that way. You want to feel like you're number one. You want to feel like you're the one that this person has been looking for and they found. It's kind of hard to feel that way when someone's treating you as if you're not good enough for them because they want more from you constantly. That whatever situation you're in is an inconvenience to them instead of them being supportive and understanding where you're coming from. You want that connection to be genuine. You want that patience to be genuine, that understanding of who you are to be genuine, and you deserve to give that to them in return. They want that just like you want that. And again, imagine that. You both are doing those same things. How beautiful is that relationship going to be? You're going to feel as free as you've ever felt. You're going to feel as great as you've ever felt. You're going to feel as loved unconditionally as you've ever felt. You're not going to feel like a backup plan to somebody until they find that perfect someone, and you're just been good enough until they find it. You don't feel like a glorified sex machine that they're just using like a toy until they find a new one better on the market. You want to feel like a person. You want to feel like an individual who deserves to be loved, especially if you're going into the relationship feeling that way. If that person is special to you and you love them, treat them as such. You'll eventually find somebody who is going to treat you the exact same way. That's the way life works. You continue to be the great person that you are. If there are the things about you that you know aren't so great, you need to change those as well. You can't play victim. You can't act like life is kicking you in the ass. If there are things about you that you need to change in order to get what you're seeking, damn well better get on it. But if you've already done that homework and you feel like you're ready, your time is coming. That special person will show up. And you'll notice the difference. you will notice the difference. Even in a person that's already been there your entire life, people change. You'll notice the difference. But it's not about what people do wrong all the time. People can change. People can get over the hump. They can become completely new people, just like you can.